everyone, we are back with another Nancy Drew cookbook recipe video. I know it's been a little bit since we have done one. I did do some Wicked themed baking videos, so those kind of pushed these out of the way for a little bit since the Wicked movie was coming out. But we are back to try another recipe from the Nancy Drew cookbook, and today we are going to be making the Redgate Farm meatballs. So definitely stay tuned if you want to see how to make this recipe. Alright guys, so here is the recipe. I will put it on screen here if you guys are interested in trying this out for yourself, but all of the ingredients are pretty minimal, and most of these items I bet you probably already have in your kitchen. Alright, so here are all the ingredients we need for this recipe. 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Now I'm actually only using 1 pound, so my recipe will be adjusted slightly. 1/2 cup of uncooked rice, 1 can of tomato soup, 1 tablespoon of chopped onion, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 soup can of water. So the first step is to peel and chop a small onion. Now it only calls for 1 tablespoon of chopped onion. Doesn't seem like very much for this recipe, especially with the amount of meat we're using, but I'm just gonna follow the recipe and I'm gonna chop these up really fine. Alright, so I'm sure I probably have a little bit more onion than I need, but I think it's going to be just fine. So next we need to add the ground beef, rice, salt, and pepper all in a bowl. Alright, so in goes the ground beef. Now I'm going to add in the rice, add the salt, add the pepper, and add the onion. Alright, now we stir and shape the mixture into balls. Now it doesn't tell me how big to make the balls, so I'm just gonna go with my gut on it. Okay, so from that, I was able to make 17 pretty good sized meatballs. They're definitely a little bit larger than like a store-bought frozen meatball. And of course, this is with 1/2 pound of beef less than what the recipe called for. So of course, this would obviously make up a few more meatballs if I had the full amount. So mine are a little bit less than what the recipe called for. Now the recipe says put the soup into a deep saucepan, add water and heat. So I'm actually going to use my Dutch oven for this. Since these are a little bit larger meatballs, I want to be able to make sure I can fit them all in here. So now I'm going to go ahead and crack the lid on this can. All right, now we need to add the entire can. All right, now I'm going to add that 1/2 cup of water. We're going to try to get some of this off the lid here as well. I'm gonna grab a clean spatula and just stir this up, get it all mixed in. All right, so now I'm gonna take this over to the burner and heat it. All right, the soup has now come to a boil. So now I'm gonna turn it on low, and one by one, I'm going to start putting the meatballs into the soup. So now we are going to cover this, put it on low, and we're going to let it cook for 1 hour. All right, so the meatballs have been cooking for an hour now. I have turned off the heat. So here are what the meatballs look like. They definitely look kind of interesting with the rice in there, but let's go ahead and plate it up. Okay, and this is how it looks plated, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. This is not the most pretty dish I've ever seen, but we're gonna give it a taste and see how it is. All right, guys, we are ready to try the Redgate Farm meatballs. I have to say, this definitely isn't the prettiest look of the meal. I don't know why. Just something about the rice sticking out of the meatballs just kind of gives me a little bit of the ick, but let's taste it and see how it is. All right, let's kind of do a little cut in half. One of the meatballs. Let's kind of get a little bit of that soupy sauce on there. All right, here we go. I need a sip of water real quick. The first thing is probably the biggest strike against this recipe, and that is the fact that the rice is not all the way cooked. It is about, I would say maybe like 75% cooked. It still has a little bit of that crunch to the rice. So the rice is definitely not fully cooked, and I did follow the recipe for an hour on low, exactly like it said. And yeah, the rice in the meat, some of it is definitely a little undercooked. Let me try to get some of just like the tomato sauce part, the soupy part. Like the rice that fell into the soup did all get cooked pretty well. It's just the rice that is in the meatball part that could have used a little bit longer. Now the flavor of the rice with the soup is actually quite nice. However, as far as the meatballs go, I think that these just drastically need some seasoning. Now, of course, we did do salt and pepper in the meatballs, but that was really not enough. Like, if you're just doing salt and pepper, you're not seasoning enough. I would have probably added a little bit of like onion powder or garlic powder or both into the mixture of the meat, because I just find that the meatball flavor itself leaves a little to be desired. It just honestly kind of tastes like under-seasoned meatballs. So I think I'm definitely, to just save what I've already cooked, I'm gonna throw in some seasoning in it and definitely cook it a little bit longer. But as far as how I rank this as the recipe as it is, I followed everything as closely as I could, minus like the little adjustments of like the amount of ground beef. But none of the changes that I made were like detrimental to the recipe. So as this recipe is, I give it a D. It really wasn't that great. I think that really just the under-seasoned meat and the undercooked rice are the two biggest strikes against it. Had it been more seasoned, I think it would have been good, and then the rice cooked all the way through, I think it would have been much, much better. But as far as the recipe goes as is, I would definitely give it a D. It just really wasn't that great. Now, of course, with the adjustments to it, I think it has a really good potential to move up to maybe like a B level recipe, but you definitely gotta season these some more. They just need something to it. I'm not a big fan of under-seasoned ground beef. No fancy seasonings to it. Just honestly is not my favorite. So unfortunately, as is, I gotta give this one a D, but I think this one has a lot of potential to be a lot better if you modify the recipe slightly. Alright guys, so that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on social media. Links are below. And until my next video, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.